has a story to claim. Sit back, listen to conversation between Terry Lynn and new authors on the rise, and let the journey begin.
Hello, friends. Welcome to my podcast, Conversations Between Terry Lynn and New Authors. On this episode, I'm doing something different and special. I hope you enjoy it. Someone reminded me last week that I should share a little more about my personal life. I laughed at first because I thought, who really wants to hear about my everyday life? I usually share my conversations with new authors on the rise. Then later that week, I received my weekly newsletter from my writing coach. I always look forward to her emails because they're full of wisdom, encouragement, and helpful advice about the author journey. Things like finding your voice, connecting with readers, and staying consistent with your goals. But this time, her message was different. Instead of teaching or giving advice, she opened up about something personal, something that had recently happened in her own life. It was heartfelt, vulnerable, and completely honest. I remember sitting there, reading every word, feeling like she was talking directly to me. Felt so real and relatable. I wasn't just reading about writing tips anymore, I was getting a glimpse into the person behind those tips. And it reminded me how powerful that can be. 'Cause when we take the time to be authentic, to let people see the ups and downs, the good and the hard, it builds something deeper. Creates connection. And in a world where so much of what we see online is polished and perfect, that kind of honesty feels refreshing. That little moment got me thinking. Maybe I should do that more often too, share the parts of life that happen behind the scenes. Not just the highlights or the big milestones, but the small, everyday things that remind me I'm human, learning, and growing just like everyone else. Sometimes those behind-the-scenes moments are where the real lessons happen. It's not always about the book launches or the fun events. It's about the interruptions, the detours, and the surprises that test our patience and stretch our faith. And I don't know about you, but those are the stories that usually stick with me. The ones where someone says, "This wasn't what I planned, but here's what I learned." 'Cause that's what truly connects us. It's not just the successes or the shiny parts, it's the stories about real life. The moments that make us laugh, sigh, or shake our heads and say, well, that didn't go as planned. So today I want to do just that. I want to pull back the curtain and share a story from this past week. Something that started as a frustration but turned into a beautiful reminder that even when things don't go as we plan, God's timing is always perfect, and His care shows up in the most unexpected ways. In fact, I've decided to update you on my personal life on the first Monday of each month. Back to my story about my unplanned week. Let's just say it was one of those weeks when everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But in the end, it turned out to be one of those gentle reminders that God's timing really is perfect. So here's what happened. This past weekend, I was supposed to be at a big craft fair out of town. I'd been planning for months, packing up books, setting up displays, organizing table decorations, printing signs, you name it. You know how much effort goes into these events. I was excited. I love meeting readers, talking about stories, and connecting with families. I could already picture the conversations, the smiles, and the kids stopping by my booth. But as it turns out, God had a different plan for me. On Monday afternoon, out of nowhere, my precious wheelchair stopped working. It would not go for longer than few seconds. And after some quick investigating, we discovered the culprit, my 6-month-old puppy Cuddles. Yes, Cuddles decided that chewing on wires was her new favorite hobby. If you've ever dealt with medical supply stores or insurance companies, especially when it comes to electric wheelchair repairs, you know the process isn't quick. Slow, it's complicated, and it involves a lot of waiting. So right away, I started to worry. How am I going to get to the event this weekend? By Tuesday, I was able to borrow a loaner chair from a local church. There's this kind lady there who collects used medical equipment and loans it out to people who need a little extra help. Isn't that amazing? She's such a blessing in our community. That gave me a glimmer of hope. the trip might still be possible, or so I thought. Now, the borrowed chair worked, but it wasn't very comfortable. I realized that if we went, I'd have to bring both, mine to sit in while traveling and the loaner to use at the event. And friends, if you've ever tried to fit a wheelchair, tables, book displays, boxes of books, decorations, and personal luggage into one vehicle, it's basically like trying to solve a puzzle that doesn't have all the pieces. It just wasn't practical. And to be honest, I knew deep down that sitting in that borrowed chair for 2 full event days would be miserable. Then, on Thursday, my husband started having pain in his shoulder and neck. Got worse overnight, and that pretty much sealed the deal. We decided to stay home. And at first, I was disappointed. I really was. You plan, you prepare, you look forward to these moments, and then suddenly you're watching them fall apart. I think we've all been there, right? Those moments when life just doesn't go according to our plan. But then came Friday evening. I opened my email and saw a message from the event organizers. It said, "We're so sorry, but due to heavy flooding in the park, the craft fair is canceled." I just sat there for a minute, blinking at the screen. I couldn't believe what I was reading. If my wheelchair hadn't stopped working, and if my husband hadn't started hurting, we would have already been halfway there when that email came in. We would have packed everything up, driven hours, checked into a hotel, and then turned right back around. Talk about divine timing. It hit me right then and there. Sometimes God closes a door not because He's saying no, but because He's saying, "I'm protecting you." In my opinion, this was His gentle way of saving us from wasting time, energy, and money, and probably a whole lot of frustration. And that's what I love about how God works. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it looks like a broken wheelchair, a sore shoulder, and a canceled event, but behind the scenes, He's rearranging things for our good. You know that Bible verse from Romans 8 verse 28? It says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." That verse came to mind as I sat there, realizing how close we came to wasting a weekend on something that wasn't meant to be. It made me think about how many times in life I've been frustrated by something that didn't go as planned, only to look back later and realize that it was actually protection. Maybe you've had something like that happen too. Maybe a job opportunity didn't work out, or a trip got canceled, or something broke right before an important day. And at the time, it felt like the worst thing ever, but then somehow it led to something better, or at least spared you from something worse. It's those little reminders that God really is watching out for us, even in the details we don't notice. So, I didn't get to go to the craft fair, but I did get to rest. My husband was able to take care of his shoulder. And I got some extra time at home with Cuddles, who, by the way, is now banned from anywhere near wires. We're both still learning. Looking back, I can laugh about it. And more importantly, I can see how it was never really about a broken wheelchair or a canceled event. It was about trust. Trusting that God's plans are better than ours. So, if you're listening today and you're in one of those "why is this happening" moments, take a breath. It might not make sense right now, but give it time. One day you might look back and see the fingerprints of grace all over it. 'Cause sometimes what feels like a setback is actually God setting something right. Thank you, Lord, for always watching out for us, even in the little things. Before I go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a time when your plans changed, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise? Maybe something didn't go the way you hoped, but in the end you could see God's hand in it? I'd love to hear your story, so comment below or email me. Alright friends, that's all for today. Thanks for listening, for being part of this community, and for letting me share a piece of my heart with you. Until next time, keep trusting, keep smiling, and remember, even when plans change, God's plan is always right on time. Okay, my listeners, tune in next week when I bring you another special episode. I've decided to bring you a special episode once a month. I'll talk to someone who helped me navigate this wild journey of being an author. I hope they can help other authors who may listen to this podcast. On next week's episode, I'll be talking with Pavani Apsara, who is my illustrator for my third and fifth children's books, Abby Ability and Does Anyone Know My Language? Respectively. Until then, happy reading with your kiddos.